As always, let's begin by thinking about the agenda because we've got a lot of things to talk about in the next hour. We're going to begin by reminding ourselves of the basic definition of serious harm. Then we're going to look at an important summary of the key case on this. And the reason for going through this is because then we're going to apply that in a series of more recent cases. You'll be aware that the leading authority with regard to interpretation of this particular issue of serious harm is a case called Lachaud and IPL, as you can see from your slide. And essentially, the various findings of that case have now been put together in a series of propositions that have been propounded by judges in later cases, and one of which we're going to be talking about today. And essentially, we're going to go through those propositions just so we've got all that clear before we then do proceed to apply those to 4 recent cases, as we will see. We will have a little nod to practice direction 53B as we go along. That is the relevant practice direction, and we will find that ultimately it is possible to potentially argue that a claimant's claim should be struck out on the basis of a failure to comply with practice direction 53B, and we'll look at one or two of the issues around that. We'll then go on to look at some more substantive issues. So we'll talk about the issue of single publication, and we'll see some of the problems that can arise with regard to that. But then we'll spend more time talking about the issue of substantial publication. So what constitutes a substantial publication? Are we talking about thousands of people? Could it occur where it happens to one person, and so on? And we'll look at that through a variety of recent cases. Allied to that, we'll also look at whether we can find serious harm by reference to inferences of fact. Again, you may well be familiar with Lachaud and IPL's key statements around the need to show actual harm has occurred typically or is likely to occur. And obviously there's been discussion about the extent to which we can draw inferences of fact or whether we've actually got to show actual harm. And we're going to discuss that again through the prism of several of these cases. And finally, we're going to look at the issue of timing of serious harm. Ultimately, can the statements made after the initial publication be taken into consideration when thinking about this issue? And we'll look at one final case within the context of a slander case to deal with that issue at the end.